Today we voted on the Climate Action Now Act, which prevents the president from withdrawing from the Paris Agreement. What's the Paris Agreement again? It's an agreement among nearly 200 countries to lower carbon emissions to combat climate change. The idea is that we, as a globe, are in this together. It sounds great and it makes us feel good, but the targets it sets are unrealistic and unworkable. The agreement calls for the U.S. to cut emissions by 28% from our 2005 levels. Well, what would a 28% decrease in emissions by 2025 actually look like? The short answer, it would drastically alter the energy sources we depend on every single day. It would cut jobs, close factories, dramatically increase utility costs, decrease economic production, and ruin our ability to create new green energy solutions like carbon capture technology. This is a huge burden just to get very, very little in return. If every country reached full compliance, there would be a minuscule change in temperature, only 0.2 of 1 degree Celsius by 2100. That's a very small benefit for such a massive setback for the American economy. And it's America's economy that gets hurt the worst. China, for example, accounts for way more global emissions than we do. But through this agreement, it is able to continue increasing its emissions for over a decade. Worse yet, the carbon reduction that the U.S. would achieve by being totally compliant is the same amount of carbon that China emits in just 14 days. It makes this agreement totally irrelevant. And let's look at some other examples that did not actually work. Germany's energy experiment. Germany has spent over $580 billion to phase out coal as an energy source by 2038. In 2018, coal still accounted for 38% of Germany's energy industry. Their expensive push for wind and solar hasn't made a dent on emissions per capita. $580 billion for close to nothing. Instead, why don't we look at what has worked? Currently, the U.S. has already decreased emissions by 14% since 2000. We are clearly doing something right, and it's because we are exploring new energy technologies like natural gas, which completely revolutionized clean energy and led to decreased costs. We don't need legislation keeping us in this unreasonable agreement. We especially don't need H.R. 9, which would turn the non-binding Paris Agreement into a binding agreement, opening us up to legal repercussions for not making targets. Now, it's clear we must do something to protect our environment and combat the effects of climate change. No dispute there. But we don't want to handicap the greatest innovation engine the world has ever known, the U.S. economy. Instead, we want to unleash it. To curb global emissions, we need to unleash American ingenuity and explore carbon capture technology, nuclear energy, and exporting clean natural gas to countries that burn dirty coal. This is the future, and that is how we keep our environment clean.